Hello and welcome to this week's Mystic Message. This week's Mystic Message showed up to me as this deep, deep rumbling beneath the sea. This vast world, this vastness, right? And the ocean, water, it really represents emotions and depth. And what this truly is about is this return of these patterns and cycles specific to Atlantean times, specific to the fall, the collapse of Atlantis and other ancient civilizations. So briefly, let's rewind and let's revisit karma and the idea of karmic cycles. Karmic cycles, are these experiences that we keep repeating because we didn't learn a lesson, we didn't heal from a thing. We came into an incarnation to have a certain experience, whether individually or collectively, all of us, right? There are themes that are very collective within a species, or small groups, and then also individually, right? And so the way that this presents to me, if you're a visual person, karmic cycles, the repeating of the same pattern over and over and over, and you'll notice this in your life. We all have these patterns. It's represented by a circle. And the overcoming and the clearing of a karmic cycle comes through making a different decision, learning this lesson, whatever it is, healing whatever needs to be healed, and then it becomes a spiral. So think about it like this. Think about it like a clock. And say you start at, say, 12 o'clock for the sake of this visual example, and you go around and you go around and you go around, and the karmic cycle is when you get to 11:59 and you haven't learned anything. And you're going to do the same thing you've always done, whether out of fear, out of comfort zone, whatever. It doesn't really matter the reason. You're repeating that same pattern. You're staying in the cycle. So you come to that 12 o'clock and you haven't made any shifts or moves, and you just continue, and it's a circle. Continuing circle over and over and over, right? Whereas when we heal a karmic cycle, we overcome this patterning, typically through making a different decision, right? Doing something differently. You get to that kind of 11:59 point and you've learned, you've evolved. And so now your circle, that line, it's not ready to meet right up with that 12 o'clock, right? It's growing and it's evolving. And so now it's kind of outside of that line. And now it's still going. We're still going to revisit a lot of different themes, right? We're still going to see 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, so on and so forth, but not on that same line, not repeating in the same pattern. We're going to see it from a different perspective, from a different angle. We're going to heal whatever this thing is in a different layer of it, right? And so then it becomes this spiral. The spiral is our soul's evolutionary growth and expansion. That's what we want. We always continue to revisit themes, but through different angles, through different perspectives, right? So let's bring this back to this message now. We are at this point where we're kind of at this like 11 o'clock point. And this is, again, personal. These are your own karmic wounds. These are your ancestral patterns. This is a collective humanity experience and wound. And it's also connected to Mother Gaia. So this is really deep because we're not just feeling it individually. We're not just feeling it collectively. We're not just feeling it through the earth and her shifting. We're feeling it from all these different angles. And so it compounds on itself and it feels stronger and also relatively intangible sometimes. And what we are at risk of repeating here, again, between an individual level and a collective level, different for everyone, right? So one person might have a ton of individual karma patterns related to this and some might not. But either way, we're all feeling the collective. And what we're at risk of repeating here is this seeking and value of the external versus the internal. This is I value and I trust and I give everything to everyone around me, to the government. I find all of my education from these external sources. I let everyone tell me what I should and shouldn't do. It's the value in the external. That also manifests in the way our technology is. It's the the value in external technology versus internal technology. We all have internal technology. That's called your intuition. It's called your third eye. It's called all of your clairs. So it's this shift or this risk of finding an imbalance between external and internal. And so that is one thing we're at risk of repeating, because that is a big part of what created this collapse in this in a negative way, right? And we lost a lot of the beauty. And so we're also at risk of repeating a pattern of power, force, and control being more of a value, being more of something we seek after. And this might look more collective. It might look like more people around you than maybe internal. But power, force, and control versus flow, surrender, and trust. This is a masculine, divine masculine versus divine feminine kind of energy. And it has nothing to do with your gender or your, sex. It's not a gendered thing. They're just different energies. And we need this balance, right? We've been super imbalanced. And so we're at risk of staying in this control. Like, I gotta white knuckle everything. I gotta do it all, versus embracing the surrender and the flow and trusting. We're also at risk of repeating this pattern of fear of speaking up when something doesn't feel right. It's that deep, you want to, but we're scared. We're all so deeply wounded around speaking up. And so we're at risk of repeating that fear once again and letting things take place because we were too scared to stand up and to speak up, because there's far more of us that are probably on the same page with things than kind of the loud ones that are out there right now, right? The loud tends to be the very extreme, and the quiet tends to be the majority. And so we're also at risk of repeating this kind of feeling and this fear and this energy of feeling stuck, of feeling like we're falling into something deeper, darker, that feels like it's going to hold us here. And because karma doesn't necessarily, it's not intended to keep us here on earth, to keep us reincarnating here on earth. But the reason that it manifests that way sometimes is because sometimes we can't overcome this karmic pattern unless we are here on earth, because certain experiences, don't translate to other worlds. And so we come back here because now we're in this karmic cycle. And in order to shift it from this circle to this spiral, we need to make a different choice, which means we need to incarnate and be in it and experience it, right? So these are the risks, right? And the way that this is manifesting, because this is subtle. This is not, this is not what the news is going to tell you. This is what you're feeling. This is the energy. These are the emotions that we're kind of resisting, and we might feel, but we're not really sure why. And so it's manifesting as extreme anxiety, of course, in every way possible, especially around letting go of control. And so when we feel out of control, we want to hold more control, right? And this, battle and this fear and this anxiety around going internal, right? And so there's anxiety all around. We could talk for an hour about the ways that this anxiety is showing up. But I invite you to really explore that for yourself if that's showing up. It's also manifesting as, again, this desire to stand up, to speak up, but almost paralyzed in fear. Whether it's a deep paralyzed in fear or no one, manifesting as these kind of belief systems of nobody's going to listen. My voice doesn't matter. There's all these different kind of angles or spectrum around this, just wanting to speak up, wanting to make change, but feeling hopeless, right? Because that's another thing, is this hopelessness feeling and it might feel like, where is this hopelessness coming from? And then we kind of chalk it up, oh, it's me, I must be going through a depression or a bad phase of life or whatever. And then we kind of go down that rabbit hole that is not even what it is, right? It's also manifesting very heavily around the solar plexus, right? So right in your gut, this yellow would be the color for this energy center, this chakra, and it's very much around our sovereignty, our personal power, our confidence, our self-worth, our security in ourselves. And it's so there's a lot of solar plexus. So you might feel discomfort right in your gut, but it's very, as much as it's a lot of those themes, there is this big power struggle between internal and external. And it's such a fine line between speaking up from passion, which is empowerment, which is holding your power, versus speaking up out of maybe fear or rage, right? I hate everything that's happening. And then you're giving your power away. And so there's this balance and this dance that wants to take place between what comes from internal and then shows up externally versus what is giving our power away, what's being taken, right? And so we want to be coming from an empowered place, and we want to speak up, and we want to find that balance, right? But knowing who you are, this is your solar plexus is who you are. It's your identity. It's your ego, which I know a lot of people think negatively of, but it's not always negative. It's very much, it's who you are, and coming from that place. And knowing and trusting if you're coming from the shadow and you're coming from this more wounded space, that might be giving your power away if it's coming from rage. So there's a balance, this dance of internal and external, in this power struggle that is trying to keep you away from what's inside, keep you away from your intuition. Consume all these TikTok videos, consume all these YouTube videos, watch this, listen to this, watch the news, scroll on Facebook, all of these different things that are trying to keep you in this external, because you can't do much from there, right? You'd find yourself often more in rage, right? Instead of passion and holding your power. And so it wants to really manifest from this authentic internal place of who you are in passion. And so there's this little power struggle taking place. And it's also manifesting as almost like clinging to stability, but also wanting it to all blow up, right? I think we all feel that, right? It's like everything's feeling wobbly and like we're scared for our like basic needs, right? Root chakra stuff. But at the same time, we want it to all explode because we know that this isn't working anymore. This isn't working. It hasn't been working for a long time. But so there's that balance in this kind of struggle here around clinging to stability, but wanting it to all implode. So those are the things you might be feeling. And so ultimately what we want to do, again, collectively and individually, is we want to make different decisions. And of course, all you can control is yourself. And so that's what I invite you to focus on, of course. Don't focus on what everyone else is doing. Unless you are someone who maybe does group work and you want to take this and you want to bring other people into this idea and maybe do group meditations, group healings, group grid work, whatever, is we want to really go internal. We need to really discover who we are. We need to go into our heart. We need to go into our solar plexus. We need to be using our intuition. We need to be trusting our gut. We need to trust and surrender. We really just need to turn off the noise, not watch the news, not scroll on social media, not scroll on TikTok, not watch every YouTube video that we come across. We need to go inside because we really need to develop that discernment and intuition. We are watering ourselves down by consuming everything else. We're watering down our intuition. We're not giving our intuition a chance to even show up for us. And our intuition is begging us to pay attention, right? And so through that, we need to keep our own power, right? This is the theme is solar plexus. We need to hold our own power. We need to not be giving our power away. We need to know who we are. We need to be sovereign and come from passion and truth, our own truth, of course. And again, not subscribing to everything around us, right? You're being asked to level up, essentially, internally, who you are. Channel it for yourself. Instead of relying on an external person, learn how to receive for yourself. We all receive. People like to say, oh, you're gifted or you're not, or you're psychic or you're not. And it's all bullshit because we're all psychic. We're all channeling energy and we're all receiving all of the time. And so we're being asked to level up and use our internal technology instead of relying on this external technology all around us all the time. And through this, of course, inner work. And it's perfect because we're about to enter winter, right? Winter is the time, if you're, of course, in this hemisphere where winter is coming. this is usually that time where we do go really internal. And so it's all aligning really beautifully with the themes and the seasons of Mother Gaia as well. And the biggest thing right now is to really try our best to not resist or fear the crumbling. Because here's the thing. The crumbling is going to happen either way. Things are going to fall apart. What you're focusing on, where you're pouring your attention and your energy, where your vibration is, where your mindset and your perspective is, that is what you're going to manifest. That is what you're going to pour your energy into creating. If all of us are fearing the apocalypse, or like this like one world government, or just like the government getting worse and taking more power, or whatever we're fearing might happen, the more we sit in that fear, the more we focus on that, the more likely that's going to be the outcome. It's going to crumble either way. We can fear it or we can embrace it. We can feel like my life is being taken from me and I have no control, or we can take it as an opportunity to create something more beautiful. It's really around our mindset and perspective. And if you're sitting so heavily in fear and you're struggling, like, my heart goes out to you. And this very much is your invitation. This is why the inner work is needed, because you have to unpack that fear so that you can release it. And lastly, the last thing I'm going to leave you off with, if you do these things, if you follow these things, many of you probably already are, right? If you're watching this, you've done some work, right? Or a lot of work. As if we find ourselves doing all of these kind of things that create this different decision, right? This new outcome, there is going to be a deep remembering that's going to show up for you. There is going to be an activation of your DNA, right? We talked not that long ago about this ancestral kind of energetic and DNA activation from way back when. This time, we're right here. We're at 11 o'clock. We're getting ready to hit that point of which way are we going to go? And the more of us are in that perspective of, this is an opportunity. We're going to recreate. We're going to rebuild. We're going to bring back our inner technology. We're going to balance the scales. It's not about getting rid of all of the external or the divine masculine. It's about balance, because we've been like this for so long, and we need this balance. We need to bring this divine feminine energy back up to create the balance societally and internally. And once we kind of are doing these things for ourselves individually, this DNA begins to activate. And the visual that I got was this beautiful, kind of like a clear quartz merkaba, or merkaba, if that's your preferred pronunciation. And that's going to generate inside of you. It's this beginning of our energetic shift of our bodies that many people have talked about for a long time. And it starts with this DNA shift. And it starts with the physical body. And then our energetic body is going to follow suit. And when that happens, it's one person's energy does not match. So one person at that and one person at, like, I'm still in fear and I'm still subscribing to the bullshit. It's not a one-to-one. It's not you cancel one person out. It's you're going to be so much more impactful in this shift. It's not that we're going to need 50% or more of humanity to be on board. It's less than that, because it's depending on the person and the vibration, that one person might cancel out 100 or 1,000. So don't worry about everyone else. Don't give your power away to fear or feeling hopelessness or focusing on what everyone else is doing. Again, blinders on. Stop paying attention to the external. Get inside of you. Get to know your body. Get to know your inner child. Get to know your shadow. Get to know your ego. Get to know the wounds that you need to heal. Get to know who you are on a magical soul, multidimensional level. That's where it's at. And then this merkaba, it's going to just come online. You don't even have to do anything. And it's going to be beautiful. And I'm so here for it. So here's your message. And I hope that it gives you hope and feeling really empowered. Mwah.